Well, good morning, everybody. It's Barry's Best Honey. I'm Mike, and unfortunately, I have to work bees. Welcome to Southeast Louisiana. I'll explain in a second. Well, everyone, you almost can't make this stuff up. It's overcast and cool again. We had 1.5 inches of rain last night up and through about 2 a.m. Still flooded out here. Overcast at 60 degrees, meaning that when it's overcast, the bees just don't fly that much. Like, they don't get out. So you got tons of bees in the colonies constantly. And it also means nectar's not coming in because they're not going out and getting it. They really don't fly that much. The nectar's not producing as much in the overcast. It's 60 degrees. That doesn't help the nectar begin to really pull forward. It doesn't get the bees active. Say, well, maybe you could wait till tomorrow. No, it's supposed to rain again all day tomorrow. And I tell you, every day I've been off, we've had weather like this, and the bees are just disgustingly mean. They don't like to be gone through when they're all home and they're nestled in. And, you know, it's not cold enough for them to cluster, but man, they get irritated. I have worked bees in the sunshine and beautiful weather once in the last 3 weeks and twice in the last 5 weeks. And it was pleasant. I'm not gonna lie, it was pleasant. Like, there were a couple ornery colonies. I always have a couple in the bee yard that are just nasty colonies, but maybe they're good producers and I just leave them alone. But you know, you guys are seeing the worst of the worst right now, and honestly, I don't have horrible bees. It's just, golly, this weather is unbelievable mixed with my time off. I don't know. It makes me not want to work bees, and you know, that's kind of at the beginning making like, man, I don't want to work them right now. I don't enjoy getting in them when it's constant bombardment. Now, I will say the camera has made it a lot worse. Even my my Hero 4 has gotten where they attack that mic a lot. It's got a little external mic that sticks off the side. They attack it, and when they do that, it sounds really bad. But you know, outside of the camera, you know, they're not all over me. I'm not being, you know, just relentlessly attacked. Don't get me wrong, but they do get spun up a lot, and there are several hives, and that as you get going, they start getting in your veil. You know, getting after your veil, you can feel them banging, and as you get one stirred up in this weather, the next one is stirred up, the next one, and it's quite frustrating. And it's really, you know, normally I would just put this off and I'd say, yeah, look, I can push it till tomorrow. So what I'm going to do, I've got to zip through. I do have a list in my hand of things I want to have to do. I don't have to check any splits. That's another thing. I couldn't get in to do my get my colony reorganized. Yesterday evening was my time. I would have loved to get the colony reorganized to make queen cells again. Not reorganized, but set up and have it configured a few days prior, but we've had rain all week and overcast, and it just hasn't worked out. So I haven't been able to get any cells in. That's gonna have to wait a few more days, and I've got some hives. There's 3 of them out there that probably need to be split. So going into splits, I am at the point of the month. This is usually in March. These are my last weekends for splits, the middle of the month. I don't want to split anymore after this. I want to begin to try and super them up and keep them in the boxes. So the splits I do will have to be walkaways, which that's half a hive that's done for honey. It won't make honey. Not anything significant. Maybe I can get some cells in. I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to do with it. It's just not worked out. I tell you what, this is why I started this channel. I want people to see the challenges. There's challenges in beekeeping. You have 1 or 2 colonies, challenges are much, much less. You get 40 and you're trying to manage some honey production, maybe a few nuke sales, it gets challenging. What I do this time of year as we begin to get towards April, how I manage swarming as far as if I don't split them, and even when I do split them, our flow down here, we may or may not get a privet flow, and if we don't, we just get a very small residual flow. It keeps the bees building, but it doesn't fill supers. I can put supers on in that kind of flow, and they will not fill it. They will backfill their nest 9 out of 10 times and swarm. So we have another month, a month and a half, 2 months if the privet doesn't come in, of trying to control swarming. Another thing they do in this kind of weather when they're not able to get out, even though there might be some nectar flowing to an extent, when they're not flying and the nectar's not pushing forward through these blooms as heavily, and I begin to open colonies all around other colonies, we get robbing. Because if they can find honey right next door in 60-degree overcast weather, they're gonna rob that honey out. They're gonna rob that nectar. So if I'm pulling frames and setting them to the side in overcast conditions, robbing, whether there's, unless it's a heavy flow, but if there's no, decent flow going on, we begin to get robbing. So it really compounds things in this kind of weather. And when the robbing begins, then the hives really get defensive. But back to the swarming thing, the swarming just, it's a problem all the way through. So it's not something I can just go, okay, well, I put 2 supers on there, they should be good. That doesn't mean anything unless we've got a heavy flow. Now, once we get heavy flow, they're just concentrated on that. But up through April 15th, it's a month and a half to 2 months solid for us of watching for queen cells, unless you just really split them all down hard. And I don't like to split them all down hard, because then I lose a lot of production for honey if I don't requeen with mated queens. It's just a fine line we walk for the length of time we have with dealing with swarming conditions. I'm not saying it's nothing anybody else deals with. I'm just saying it's long for us, and I just go through and I check for swarm cells, and we're going to do that today. So that'll be what my video is, showing you how I try and control that. And if I do anything else interesting, I'll tell you. And if there's any swarms in the trees, I will show you. What I will say as I walk out here to the yard in this swamp we call Southeast Louisiana is, as frustrating as it can be sometimes, I got to look at it as a teachable moment. Here's the sun coming out as I'm thinking this and talking about this. Maybe it'll burn some of this off, but in the end, I'm blessed, guys. I'm so blessed. And, Lord could be teaching me something in all this. Patience, self-control. Not that this is a huge challenge. This is a side gig. It's not the end of the world, but it's still a teachable moment for patience, long-suffering, self-control, joy. No need to get so crazy and upset about it. And I do sometimes. I get very upset sometimes and go, what are you doing? What are you thinking? It's all under control. God has everything under control. It doesn't really, if I were to have to get out of the bees tomorrow, it wouldn't matter. I mean, I'm still blessed. So, he's always teaching me something. A lot of times when we get frustrated and things like that, it's just a test. So, anyway, I'm going to get through some of these and show you what I do. I'll explain it as I go. I'm going to start on this end. These always seem to be a little better. I'm going to take a quick gander at my notes, turn you back on, and we'll go through and figure out what do we really need to do out here in this here bee yard. So I have 2 over here that I know I need to check on for queen cells. They're going to need to be split today. I feel like I'm going to split them. I want to do my last 2 splits. If they're walkaways, so be it. They're walkaways. But they're pretty deep. They were pretty decent colonies. So let's give this a whirl. Let's see what happens. I'll pull the top just to kind of get an idea how ornery they are. Down here on this end, they're usually not as bad. There's about 3 colonies on the other side that maybe it's always been a little testy, but in this weather, it doesn't help that I go through them so rough either. So sometimes I could stand to slow down some, but when I've got one day to work, I really do get in a hurry. Nobody had cells last Saturday or Sunday, whenever I went through. Just see if we can keep them off the camera. There's one on you, but throw a little smoke. I feel this thing is very heavy. Hoping they haven't just started loading nectar. If they have, I won't split them. I'll super them and see if we can gather some of it. But like I said earlier, they tend to like to backfill their nest and leave before they fill a super with this very light flow. They'll barely build any wax in this. So I see cups going in. which is normal. I'd expect that because this colony was pretty big. So I simply go through, I see if the cups have anything in them, and then I close it back up and make a decision on what I'm going to do. Obviously, if it has cells, we're going to split them. If it's on the verge of swarming, we're probably going to split them. Or we're going to super them if we have a flow that we know is coming. Nothing guaranteed right now. So all I do is I open these up. I mean, there's nothing here. That one looks like it has something in it. No, all of them are empty except I saw one had a little roll of jelly, but every one is dry except for that one. So normally that's just a random maybe drone or something. That's the best I can tell. There's nothing really in their swarm, but they're packed. This is a packed colony. It needs to be split. It needs to be split this week. I said to give it one more week is what I was saying, so I'm going to have to go through it. And we're not going to do this over excluders because I don't have cells to put in. We're just going to do quick walkaways. Preferably find the queen and then split them. Had I have found, say, some cells that were being built with larvae in them, I could do one of two things. I could split them like we talked about and leave, you know, the cells being built in one colony queenless, move the queen as a swarm would do. Although they wait till they're capped before they swarm usually. Or I could go go ahead and kill all those cells. Now this is something I picked up in reading some of Jamie Ellis's stuff, but it's a lot of work. So if I choose to kill the cells first before I kill anything and make sure I find a queen, after I find her, crush every single cell on all 20 frames of a double deep or 10 of a single deep, and then leave her alone for another week and give her space. So in other words, kill the cell, verify the queen, kill off knock down all the cells or beginnings of cells on all frames, put them back together and give them space. Check them in 7 days. I usually have to do that 2 weeks in a row and then it subsides. It's a lot of work though. But what I would usually do is do that on weekdays. I'd come home from work and I'd zip through every colony and just flip, flip, flip. And if I found one, mark it, come back to it, go through it, do the procedure, call it a day. It's a lot of work, but it does work. So let me find her and I'll get back with you and we'll see what we see on this colony. And while I'm looking for her, I'll take note of what brood I have and we'll split off the brood. As you can see, very packed colony, ready to be split. So we're at the point we can still split now. The walkaway side of it is only going to have, I'll probably leave the queen in place, and the walkaway side is it may or may not make honey. It just depends. But if I leave the queen in place, I know they'll make honey because they'll continue to grow, and I'll stick a second deep on her today. All right, everyone, here we go. Let's give her some more smoke. Run them on down. We're gonna look for the queen in the top. And what I'll probably do, like I said, is leave her here. I really want good production out of these colonies. It causes me more work to monitor swarming, but you know, in the end, at this time of the year, I can easily flip them up, make sure there's no cells, and super them up as we are getting into April. That should take care of the problem. And then they'll make good honey for us because this thing won't miss a beat. It won't stop. And what I'll do is I'll break her down pretty hard and rob some brood and maybe even make a nuke. And later, as we get into April, if they're still not pulling in a lot of nectar, which look, they are. They got a lot of nectar in the top right now. If they're not, then we can simply make a nuke off of them, break them down more. But that's when I start walking a fine line of don't break them down too much because we need a workforce, and that all goes into timing. Timing is everything. Break them down too hard, and it's just not a good day. You got a lot of brood that has emerged. She could be up here backfilling, hopefully. We'll find her. That's a good colony. I thought about splitting last week. No, I want to get a little more more robust, one more week. And that's what I did. Taking our time, don't have a bunch of colonies to go through, probably about half of them today. So probably about, I don't know, 20 colonies to go through at best. Look at that. If I find her, I'll put her in a cage. Keep her safe as I separate brood. I'm taking note of what brood I have up here. The sun coming out, hopefully things get a little nicer out, they get happier. This is not normally a terrible colony. Of course, they don't like the microphone cover, but so let me find the queen. I'll get back with you. Same thing. I'm gonna go frame by frame. I'm gonna find her. I'm gonna do the split. I have time today. Take my time, get it done. Sun came out. Maybe it'll stay out for a while. If these two split, but I'll get back with you. So my search took me to the bottom. I thought about just when I didn't see her in the top, shaking everybody, putting an excluder on. But I said, no, I really want to find her, and I found her in the bottom. Oh, there she is. She is crawling to the other side now. There she is. In all her glory. So I'm going to catch her so I don't damage her. She's a big old queen. I have to look at my book. I think she's last year's. There she is. All right, I'm going to put her over there. And I'm going to split this colony up brood-wise. I'm going to leave her a little less brood and more open frames. So this is a good open frame to leave her. She was on that. So the goal is get a bunch of brood out of there. I want to get her broken down some. I want to shake a bunch of nurse fees in this one, which you don't need a lot. And I want to get a lot of brood in this one because they will be queenless for the next 2 weeks. I do have one cell left. It's about to emerge. I can put in here. So I'm going to go ahead and get some brood out. And we're going to switch it around a little bit. And get her released. Put a second deep on her. She'll be good to go. She'll be a honey producer. Move the other one right next door. And I'll go get a queen cell in a couple hours. Put it in there. That's it, we're done. So we're gonna let her go. I have a lot of bees shaking out, a lot of bees in the other one. They're full. They're full. Get a second deep on this one immediately. Come on out. There she goes. Come on, go on down in there. Oh, she got on my hand. She wants to fly. There she goes. Split is made. Make a note. Move to the next. That's all I'm doing. Checking colonies. Let's go look at a weak one. I won't bore you with another split because it's long drawn out the way I'm doing it right now. When I didn't see her at first, I almost went ahead and just shook them all down, put an excluder in. Figure I can come back in a little while. Then I was like, nah, let me look. So folks, here is the colony that's in question. About, I had that one swarm in the tree. It's a very early swarm. I mean, it wasn't any of my other ones. None of them had queen cells, and all the queens were present. I found all the queens and split them or put them back together. And nonetheless, this one I split early in the 2nd of March. So let's check this one. I think it's queenless. I think it's weak. I think it's only 2 frames of bees, and I think it's going to get recombined with its donor hive. I really believe it swarmed. Okay, so the scenario was this. I went into a colony. I found like only 2 or 3 swarm cells. So I split it. Couldn't find the queen. Had the cells sitting off to the side. Looked in there and was getting ready to put it all back together and saw the little queen on the cells. Like, oh goodness. Didn't think that maybe she emerged while it was sitting there. So I put her in here. I go back and I look at the cells as I'm putting them in, and I notice one of them is actually got a little cap that's been, if you've ever seen how the caps will flip open and flip back, that's what I saw. So, yeah, empty frame. I was like, uh-oh, that was a virgin. I bet she emerged while that frame was sitting there. So I said, well, oh well, she'll just get mated out of here. And I shook a lot of bees in here for her. And because you know, this is the one that moves, so all the field bees, they lose them, so all they have is nurse bees. So I shook a lot of bees. Did like 3 or 4 shakes of bees. About 6 days later, I look up in a tree and I see a swarm up there. Not a huge swarm, not a small swarm. And this one's got like not many bees. Nobody else had cells. Nobody. Looked through every hive that week. I have to believe it was her. They probably had a bunch of bees in here, had a virgin, they took off. But I left them some larvae in here, so you'd think they would have made some cells, and they didn't. And right now, that whole story I just told you was all for nothing. Because I can tell you right now, this is a queen right colony. It's full of eggs. So, this is queen right. We leave it alone. It's going to grow. Yeah, isn't that something? They surprise you. So where did that swarm come from? That's going to be the question. Could it have been from the donor hive? We actually have sun out, guys. I'm so excited for that. The sun is out. Not super bright, but I can see the eggs. Oh, wow. These bees will amaze you every time. So this is not queenless. These bees. These bees. God's creation is something else, huh? Wow. Came from good stock, so I'm happy that she's still here. I'll leave them alone another week, and we should have capped brood we can gauge at that point. So there you go. We have eggs. She could be brand new. Maybe she probably was a virgin. Who swarmed though? Maybe the parent colony? I don't know. So what's it say? Split to number 13. That's a with queen, WQ. 3 cells left with eggs, walk away, meaning it should be good either way. Now, if they had to make emergency cells because the other cells weren't any good, then we won't see anything. If the cells were good, there's a good chance we could see something. But since there were so many bees and I didn't ever put a double on it, and I left 3 cells, it says this could have been who swarmed. They could have let one of those emerge and took off. That happens. I think I explained in another video, and I've seen it happen where when you split off a swarm and say you got like 6 cells and just leave a bunch of cells and there's still a bunch of bees and it's a huge colony about to swarm and you move the queen off, that one without the queen still goes with the virgin as soon as she emerges. So it happens pretty often, more than I would like. So I'm very careful about leaving 1 or 2 cells and 3 at the most. That's usually the most I'll leave. But I think a couple were unfinished. That's why I left them like that. They're kind of sparse in there. Yeah, I bet this is what happened. I bet this one swarmed. But we're going to find out if we have a laying queen in here yet. They're pretty quiet. I'm also careful looking kind of slow because I want to see if I see an unmated queen, a virgin queen. Ah, there she is right there. There's our unmated queen. There you go. Oh, she wants to fly. Let's get her in here. There's another cell in here, and there's one that's open. So she doesn't look like she's mated yet. I'm gonna leave her alone. So imagine that, folks. The bees actually knew what they were doing without our help. So we have a queen that should be laying in another week. So we'll give them another week. We have another one from her. So we've got 2 colonies that should be right. And we'll be ready to build them up. All right, so bingo, I went through 3 stands of bees now, just really quick. Just kind of giving them a once through, checking the notes, going in them if I need to. This one said it was still okay. The bottom had 4 and the top had 3 frames, so it wasn't growing fast. So what we'll probably do with this one is watch it, and we won't split it. If it's not growing fast, but this time it might even have an issue. Might be something we requeen later. It's got beetles in it, that's for sure. But I want to see if they've grown into the top any. I'm not even going to flip them up. I doubt they're going to swarm. Well, maybe I will.
you never know. Yeah, they should be growing up into this a lot better than they are. So they're slow going. I'm trying to think, which one is this? I can't even think of which one this might be as far as the queen, but they're pulling in some nectar here and there. And that's normally what they'll do in the top if they're slow. By this time, they'll start just kind of filling it with some nectar. And they'll just kind of stagnate. And that's just not a good queen. This one's full. I can feel it's full of nectar. It's full of brood, full of, man, slam full of larvae, so she's filling it in. Maybe she's a slow starter, but mid-March, oh gosh. All right, let me show you the next frame. What I can tell you is, just make a nice pattern, and there's a bunch of cups. Look at that pattern. Next frame is exactly like it. Wow, and I sit there and tell you they're a slow starter. Watch them, they don't swarm. Always surprises in the bee yard. Yeah, these are all nothing in them. Oh, there's an egg right there. Look at the next frame. Yeah, they're actually going to explode. Yeah, I'd say she's putting them in. She's just a slow starter. There she is right there. There's the queen. Going to town. I'll go back in the brood nest in a week, and if she is absolutely prolific and nothing's going on, and there's even, of course, her cells, I'll have to split them then. But what I'll do is I'll keep my eye on her, and I'll pull a nuke off of her next week, just to bring her back some, just to bring her in. And that meaning I'll take at least 2 full frames of brood like those. I'll get those slabs of brood out of there. I'll put in some drawn comb, give her a place to lay, and or put nectar, whatever they want to do, and take a couple shakes of bees from her, and that'll back her off some. That's kind of how I make my nukes toward the end of the season, and I usually sell those excesses off late nukes. So I'm over here. I found that other colony. I'm gonna go ahead and split. It was next to the one we split first thing. Second frame in, found the queen. This is a good calm colony. She's got brood all the way out. I'm gonna take this. Not even gonna go through it. I just know this was brood and this was brood, and she was on this one. It's heavy. It's got plenty of food. I'm gonna stick it over on another stand. I'm gonna put the queen in the bottom and leave her here, and build her into a second really quick, and we'll super her up in April, and she'll be ready to rock and roll. And I think I got 2 queen cells left that I can put in the 2 splits we did today. If I had a round of queens in my builder right now, I probably would pull 2 nukes off of that and a nuke off of one over there. But that's the other split. There might be one over there I split, but most likely I'm going to pull a nuke off of it rather than split it, because I've made increases now. My stands are full. I've got 2 empty spaces left, and I've got swarm traps out, so I'm not gonna make any more increases. I got enough. Let me let this queen loose, and I'm not even gonna look through the box. I mean, I can guarantee it's full of brood. Those bees wouldn't be that calm on those frames if it weren't. So you could almost call this a blind split, but not a walkaway, because I do have 2 cells left that I'm gonna put in these 10 frame splits I made. There she goes. Get in there. There she goes. Alrighty. So outside of some frames to go through next door, a couple hives, double checking for swarm cells there like I've been doing, and reconfiguring that queen builder, I'm done. Thank goodness the sun came out. What a beautiful day. All right, I'm gonna shut the camera off. I'll close the video in a minute, but let me see if we come across anything peculiar first. So I'm over here at the other stand, and I just went through a couple colonies, and this one here grew fast. So in the bottom there were like 6 frames, in the top there were 4. It looks like is what I wrote. I didn't open them last week at all. Opened them today, and they are absolutely exploding in there, really. And so a quick light ran through the top, and there was the queen, just like I wanted. So what I did with this one is I pulled another nuke. And I wanted to explain what I do when I pull these nukes. As long as there's no robbing going on, and I don't see any robbing yet, I leave the nuke open. I leave it open for a little while I'm finishing closing up hives. I don't close it immediately, and I will now because I'm starting to see some activity, but I want field bees out of there. I got to put a frame of honey in there, and what I don't want to do is put a frame of honey in, and then the field bees that are in there, they all fly back to the colony where they came from, which would be this one. I'm gonna put the nuke over there somewhere, and they found a nectar source. But next thing you know, they bring everybody back and they rob the thing out. So I also leave the nuke closed after I put honey in there, because this has happened before. It actually happened the other day because we had robbing going on while I was building the nuke. Didn't realize it, and some robbers had already gotten in there. By the time I moved them, they came back. But I let all the field bees come out. I did 2 shakes of bees, and that's what I'll put on my nuke. That I pulled 4 frames, did 2 shakes. That breaks her down pretty good, gives me another 2 weeks. I'll super her next week, and that'll be a week ahead before she has a chance to want to try and swarm or anything. And this nuke, why, they're probably gonna end up, I don't have a sale for them. It's not a big deal though. I don't have this one promised to anybody. So, but that broke them down hard. Buys me a couple weeks. At the rate she's laying, maybe only 1, but you know, you don't want to super too late, of course. But I do want to super toward the end of the month and see if we can keep them in. It works sometimes it don't. Once we hit mid-April, it works every time then, because they're just bringing in the nectar if the privet's coming in. So that's what I do. I let the field bees come out, keep it closed for a little bit. I'm gonna go get a frame of honey. I'll put it in there. That way they'll have food. They're not gonna have a lot of foragers right now. Whew, I am finished, guys. I think I spent 6 hours in the bee yard this morning. We got almost every stand filled now. I did 2 splits. I made 1 nuke. I reconfigured my cell builder. Now that I didn't take you to, because they're usually so crazy, but you know, the sun came out, the day turned out to be gorgeous. The Lord blessed me with a beautiful day. You know, I just went straight ahead and said, you know what, you got to do what you got to do. You know, Lord, give me the wisdom and the eyes to see what I need to see. And the next thing you know, instead of just getting frustrated with the weather that was overcast and cool again, I just went forward, and he put a smile on my face with that sunshine. The bees calmed down, except for the cell builder, but even they were calmer. Nice day in the bees, actually. A hard day in the bees, because like I said, did all those things, did a lot. Went through and remedied a couple colonies that needed some second deeps. Put some honey supers on several colonies, about 5, because I'm at the point where they're not quite. I don't want. This is my last week, and I really want to split unless I have to. I'd rather not split after this. I've got my stands full. I've got enough spots for some swarms, so I don't want to do that. So I chose to pull a nuke off one and super others, and what I'll do is I'll go back in 7 days, and if they're not going up into the supers, then I'll have to split them. Or if I catch cells, I go in 6 days from now and catch cells that are just being capped. A lot of times I can make nukes out of some of those, and I can get rid of all the cells and keep the queen and keep giving her space. It's just different ways to do it. But we fight this for a couple months, starting end of February. A lot got done. This one I tried to be a little more organized and show you the different things I'm doing on a normal day of just March. Swarm control, really. That's really all this is about, is swarm control and setting up for honey production to get the best honey production that I can get. A lot of that has to do with having queen cells and timing, and again, not wanting to split past this point, and manipulating to a way that I can maximize numbers to peak them if we get the privet. If we don't get the privet, we fight swarming a little bit longer until we get the tallow, if that comes in. So the leaves are sprouting on the tallows. We got one more cool front coming through that I can see in the near future. We're supposed to get in the 30s for one night, but who knows. So hopefully it wasn't chaotic. Hopefully you enjoyed that video. I hope you did. I'm gonna go ahead and let y'all go. Appreciate all you guys watching. It's Barry's Best Honey. I'm Mike, and I did bees. Y'all have a great day, and may God bless you. We'll see y'all later.